Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crypto Marketing Insights. Hope that everybody can hear us well in all the places you might be watching. And yeah, welcome all. It's a good day, I guess, for crypto enthusiasts and for people watching the market. Before we get into everything, I just want to say this is not a financial advice show. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy who posts videos on YouTube about marketing and crypto. And so, yeah, do your own research and all that stuff. Disclaimer, blah, blah, blah. So let's look at the market real quick. We've got 2,101 cryptos and a market at 134 billion. Of course, that depends on whether or not you take the market for what it appears to be, despite all the potential wash trading, etc. But Bitcoin dominance is sitting there at 51.7%, hasn't budged, despite all the trading. It's remaining relatively steady. You can see there Bitcoin is sitting at $3,942.45 currently on CoinMarketCap. And Ethereum is 136.60 and XRP is at 31.2 cents. And Litecoin's at $57. If you look at Litecoin closer, I mean, effectively, if you take out a bigger picture time view of it, you can see that it's sort of broken through what appears to be the end of its bear run. And that could be an indicator, maybe, that other cryptos are looking at shifting directions as well. Like I've been saying for a long time, I believe we're in a period of where we're seeing a lot of marketing campaigns shifting gears. And this is the time to be making the land grab and the time to be making a lot of traction wherever possible. So for crypto, it's especially important that we see that happening now, that marketing projects are not delayed, and that they go forward because they are necessary for this to grow. Not every coin will be Bitcoin. Not every coin will have organic marketing power par excellence, or whatever degree you believe Bitcoin may have. To be honest, Bitcoin does not have the marketing power that it could have if it had had a marketing structure built into it. But without some kind of central something, it's hard to create that. It may be possible in the future, but at the time, it wasn't something on the mind of Satoshi Nakamoto, right? Clearly. And therefore, as a result, we have the strongest brand of crypto in the world without actually having to have a central figurehead, which is great. But does it limit the potential growth of Bitcoin? Well, arguably it has, but maybe Bitcoin is now at least so well entrenched that it should still be able to survive regardless. But it is a very unique situation. There aren't many things you can think of that are so successful without having a central figurehead. Yeah, you could argue gold, because gold is a natural resource, right? But even gold, right, even though it's a natural resource, it's very much controlled by central authorities, right? By central banks, by governments, right? So yes, people have gold, but gold is very much a coveted resource and protected by force, right? In large quantities, in various places around the world. So Bitcoin, on the other hand, you can't hold it. You can't, that's part of the beauty of it. It's this ephemeral thing. But it's permanent, and it lives in the digital nether world, right? And it's amazing. But it doesn't have a central power that can help it grow So it relies on the efforts of the people in the community, right? And those are very minimal by comparison to a targeted marketing campaign by some brand that's using their own proprietary code, or, you know, their centrally issued token, or their centrally managed token, or something. And there could be maybe a way to build a crypto, right, that allows for the incorporated management expenses. So you could have a crypto that sets aside a certain portion of the tokens or coins for the purpose of outsourcing, contractors essentially and subcontractors to do the work necessary. And the subcontractors would, get the contracts based on competition and performance, and, would routinely change, I suppose, or cycle through based on that. And so, it could be possible to automate such a function and then keep the coin growing with the necessary management of, whatever it takes to support a currency. And there are a lot of things on the tech side, on the marketing side, and on the everything else. And you could still have it be completely decentralized, right, without a central figurehead. It just could be this decentralized thing that the members, and you could even add it to Bitcoin. Really, there's no reason it couldn't be built into Bitcoin. It just hasn't been yet. In theory, it could be. Maybe as a second layer, maybe, who knows. But it is something that could be done. And there are other coins that could be native to, right? So just a thought there about the necessity of making marketing for projects. You'll notice, XRP spends a huge amount on marketing. Even Litecoin, right, which is Bitcoin's kid brother kind of thing, the way they put it, which is just weird to me. But even Litecoin is, they paid for an ad or whatever. They got an ad, a sponsorship on some mixed martial arts octagon kind of, ring fighting event, like a month or two ago, whatever it was, the end of last year. And it was a relatively small logo. I was actually surprised. It wasn't this like massive logo at the center of the ring. It was like this tiny thing. Frankly, you would not even notice it if you were at the match. You probably didn't even see it. It would have been very hard to see, from a seat, even more than 5 rows out. But it's still cool. It's still the center of the ring of a well-seen event, and anybody watching on TV would have seen it. So that's good. But it wouldn't have been very visible. It was this very subtle, small thing that, frankly, was, I'm sure if any of the martial artists were laying on top of it, you could not see the logo, right? It was that small. It was way smaller than that, So, but still, the point is, Litecoin did do some kind of visible branding marketing with that. And so kudos to them for that attempt and that effort. I don't think that particularly helped them get a massive boom. I think they got more hype out of the noise about it than the actual thing, because the actual thing was really, I thought it was a joke when I first saw it. I thought, come on, where's the actual thing? That was it. Very surprising. But live and learn. These guys have been focusing on building a coin. They haven't been focusing on marketing, really. So now they're kind of getting their feet wet. And it has to be said, they've done a better job than some other coins that were, frankly, quite boastful about their marketing and turned up nothing. Whereas these guys, what I like about Litecoin, one of the things I like about Litecoin is that, the inventor, Mr. Lee, it's very understated and in a good way. And he doesn't go around bragging too much. He just really seems to listen and focus and do what he's focused on. And I actually appreciate that very much. I think that that's a good thing for Litecoin in general. And whether it has a long-term future or not, it's kind of hard to say, because it serves as a test bed for Bitcoin, and you don't really need that. But if there are more and more merchants actually accepting it, and if people do start adopting it because they have maybe an easy debit card or credit card to use it with, I could see it happening, being useful. And in Venezuela, they are accepting payments in Litecoin, right? So yeah, those things could happen. And it could be a stalwart crypto for a long time. But now I really just want to talk about the main story of the day. So this is really my, oh yeah, so I guess I'll just give you my quick, even though I'm not doing technical analysis, this is really just my opinion of this. I think we're going to see a bunch of zigzagging, okay? I don't know if we're going up or down and up, or up and down and down. I don't know what, I don't really care. I think long term we're definitely going up in value for the leading coins. And that means probably in price value as well. But I really am concerned more about the value more than the price value. And the value to me is, does this crypto project that you're working on make life better for whoever it's affecting? And if it is, you're doing a good thing, keep doing it, and that's great. And if it's not, improve it or shut it down, right? Fail faster. Get the garbage out of the way faster and focus on what matters. So, yeah, long term, I'm optimistic. I'm very bullish, I guess you could say, but from a marketing perspective, I am very optimistic and confident that this is the future for business. Yeah, not financial advice. Okay, here we go. Crypto Globe has an article, and the article is written by Omar Faridi, and he covers the topic of a well-known crypto developer named Rhett Creighton. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's very deeply in the crypto community since a long time. Part of the core dev team of Bitcoin. He's very well entrenched. And he makes the claim that most humans won't own any crypto or need jobs in 20 years. The guy he studied nuclear engineering at MIT, and he spoke with Crypto Globe, and he said basically, oh yeah, and his qualifications again are that he was previously a contributor to Bitcoin Core. Whatever, anybody could be, not really. Anybody can really be and can join an open community, but he was a contributor. He made the comments to the Crypto Globe that the, quote, worst and least secure proof-of-work networks are the ones with low hash rate and an algorithm that is used on a network with higher hash rate. Okay, and then he went on to explain that 51% attacks on small coins were actually quite easy, and he used Ethereum Classic as an example. So we saw this, for example, where Ethereum Classic was recently 51% attacked because it's easy to take existing ETH miners and temporarily point them at ETC just long enough to pull off the attack. Okay, and he basically spoke at length with Crypto Globe about this topic of whether or not proof of work or proof of stake is better. But then he got into the really interesting part, which was that he says that forking, okay, is not necessarily devastating, but made the following comment that I thought was worthy of mention. Quote, forking is always an option in open source software. It needs to be there because it's the only way we all have the freedom to choose and leave a network if we don't agree with the values any longer. Of course, when a network forks and splits, it can have disastrous effects to the community. Both new fork chains might die, or one of the two might die. Right? And then we'll get to that comment in a moment. He said when he was asked about the security risks about phishing and hacks of online exchanges and the lack of reliable custodial solutions and other issues or obstacles that are being faced right now in the crypto community, and if he thought that in the next decade or so we'd still have these things, challenging us, Creighton said, quote, "My target is that in 20 years, the GDP of the planet will be 10x what it is today, measured in ounces of gold or some long-term store of real value, obviously not measuring in fiat dollars, which will go to zero. The economy will be 90% machine-driven. Humans won't be required to have jobs if they don't want them." And then he said, given that humans won't need jobs, most of them won't own any crypto or private keys, so they won't have to worry about it. That will be the task mostly for machines in large decentralized organizations. Now, that's where I'm going to focus, okay? We're going to go backtrack and go through these motions. At first, he explains, right, that proof of work, proof of stake, it's easier to do an attack on something like a smaller coin, and that there's a lot of insecurity in smaller coins, so only the bigger, stronger coins will survive, okay? He's obviously part of the bigger, stronger coin right now, Bitcoin, and there you go. So he feels a measure of confidence from that perspective. Good. And understands where he's coming from that perspective. It's, he's made this calculated decision and estimation. Then he explains that forking, right, is actually very important. And actually, I agree with that. Forking is important for the exact reason he mentioned. It gives us the freedom to choose. Right? And it does. It gives us the freedom to choose. That's why it is important, right? Because if we one day come to the consensus that we don't like the way Bitcoin or any other coin is, and we would like it to change, well, if it's not open, if you can't fork it, how are you going to do that? You have to rebuild the whole thing. It's not always so easy. It's much easier to fork, right? And do it that way. That's why we have open source software. Think about all the advancements it's given us, right? You don't like one thing, you use something else, or you make something else that works. That's the whole idea. But it does have potentially dire and even disastrous consequences. You can destroy a coin that way. You can destroy its value, and therefore bring it to, maybe not zero, but a completely unused coin that hardly anybody uses, and make it basically effectively die off, right? So, there is that consideration, right? However, right, the idea is that if in 20 years automation will replace 90% of the jobs, then no one will have jobs except those that really want one, right? What will people do, right? How will they not need money? Well, they'll not need money because the decentralized systems should, in theory, take care of their needs. Well, hang on. Who's to say what the decentralized system will decide is anybody's needs? And why would you be limited to that? Right? If 90% of the people don't have jobs, it's not because they won't want them. It's because they won't be available. And I disagree with that completely. I don't think that people will not have jobs because they don't want them or they won't be available. I think people will have jobs because by necessity we will invent them. There will be more things we can get done with the people on hand. The fact that automation will be 90% of today's jobs doesn't mean that they will be 90% of the jobs of the future that have not yet been invented and which machines cannot do. And when those jobs are invented, no machines will exist to do them yet. And it will be a while before those jobs get replaced by machines. And whatever other jobs will be invented that will ever be replaced by machinery, the people doing that work will find other things to do, right? By necessity. We are human beings. Right? Okay, some of them, of course they won't. I know some percentage will do the underemployed thing and not be working or never work again or whatever. Yes, that happens in every recession, let alone a massive revolution in like an industrial versus technological age. Of course that's going to happen, right? Yes, there will be some percentage of people that will get left behind in the sense that they won't be capable of being as active in the economy as they used to be. That's true. That's going to happen. But the percentage that will happen to, if it's managed well by large companies that are successful and have, the actual interests of not just their shareholders, but also their customers in mind, and also the people that work for them, right, in mind. And you should have that. If people have committed a part of their life to your company and you have made a lot of money off of them, and you're still making money, then you shouldn't just be able to fire somebody. You should have to actually find another thing for them to do if they can't actually come up with something themselves. Right? I'm not, if there's no reason to let somebody go, right? If you can put them onto something else that will also make you more money, then you should do that. Right? Just because you got an automation system to replace what they were doing doesn't mean you have to let them go. It just means you have to repurpose them. I wouldn't fire somebody just because I got a machine to do their job. I would just put them on somebody else. We've done that with many marketing automation systems. We don't just fire people because we use marketing automation systems. We just use the marketers to do other things in our agency. And why would a car manufacturer get rid of all of its workforce if it could just repurpose them to do more things? But they do because they're poorly managed, right? So in any case, the overwhelming majority, I believe, of people, even if large manufacturers and those kind of companies get all roboticized and people lose those jobs, I don't think people will stay unemployed for very long. 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2. Then they go back to work. It's the human nature. There's not going to be a situation in 20 years where nobody's working. That's just really a fantasy of delusional grandeur. And I get it, man. If you're an early dev in Bitcoin, you probably can afford to have such delusions of grandeur. Or you think the world is going to be this utopia in 20 years. But that's just not reality, right? Could it happen? Yeah, man, sure. Maybe one day pigs can fly too, right? But for now, if you look at the actual trends, in 20 years, the world is going to look very much like it looks today, just with a lot more tech and innovations that we can't imagine yet because they don't exist yet. But people will still be people, and people will still get up and go to work and struggle every day. Okay, there's places on Earth that don't have water that you can drink on a regular basis. You really think we're going to solve the need for work in 20 years? That's really just fanciful thinking. That's just not going to happen, right? We've had the internet reach a huge chunk of humanity for more than 20 years already. It hasn't made the need for work or jobs or money any different. In fact, it's made it worse. People work way harder now, all the time, are always connected, are never have a proper weekend, don't earn nearly the value of the salary that they used to. All that because the dollar and everything else, every central currency is weakening, yes. And maybe crypto can change that. But for now, no. People still use crypto. And if you think fiat, and if you think people will not use fiat in 20 years, they might not use the same fiat we use today, but it will be a long time before some of them go. And it will be a long time before people accept using digital money, right? For a lot of reasons, including privacy. Like, some people just like to be anonymous when they buy stuff. They don't want you to be able to track their grocery store bills, and they pay in cash. Or some people just only have access to cash. I've spoken about this before too. I do not think humanity will be so accepting within 20 years of going full on crypto. I do believe long-term crypto has a very strong future and will be used by a growing and significant portion of humanity. And probably the wealth of humanity will be largely in crypto, maybe within 20 years. But all of it, no. And, the overwhelming majority of it, I'm not even sure about that. Maybe it'll be 51%, maybe. I don't know. But, who knows, right? But I just don't, it's hard to see. It's just currency, right? If you add up all the currencies in the world, they don't add up to more than, stocks and other kinds of assets, etc., right? They just don't, right? They couldn't. Fractional banking, right? So that's my thoughts on that. I think this is an interesting article. I think it's interesting to see the insights of somebody who's been deeply involved in Bitcoin speak about the topic. But this fanciful notion that people would not work in 20 years. Hey man, from your words to who knows years, but think about it. Think about the problem that creates. If you don't have a job, but you need something, and the system that you're depending on doesn't provide it to you because it doesn't calculate that you really need it, what would you do? You just accept it? Come on. We're humans. That's not how we are. It's a ridiculous. I don't know how isolated you have to be in your mind from the rest of the world to think that people don't need other people. And more importantly, people don't need the feeling of progression. Right? You need to progress. You need to progress. You need to progress. We need progress. Right? Humans need to progress. We need to move forward. We are ambitious. We have initiative. That's how we've built civilizations. That's how we've built technology. That's how we've built the economy. These things all happened with innovation and ambition and grit. If you don't have that, it's really hard to grow. What are you going to do? Be a stagnant sloth? Just laying around like a blob for the rest of your life? Oh, the system. I'll just let the matrix take over. Really? I don't see that happening. It's incredibly naive. Now, maybe he just did it as a PR stunt. In which case, good for him. It worked, because here I am talking about it here. Other people are probably, this, Crypto Globe put it out there in their newspaper or website. And, it could be just that. But if not, even if it is, it's a bit foolhardy or naive to speak like that when you're an influential person and suggest to people that crypto might free the world of jobs in 20 years. First of all, there's no such thing as freeing the world of jobs, because it would be bad, right? Like I said, people don't want that. And second of all, even though, some portion of people I'm sure want that. Yes, they don't want to get up and go to work. I get it. There's always some portion of people that are miserable and want to get out. I get it. But even they will face the reality that when everyone else is still working, they will either need to get a job or accept being unemployed for the rest of their life, and that's not fun, right? It's just so counterintuitive to human nature, and I find it fascinating. And I thought that I'd mention that today because it's a weekend, and if you look at marketing every day, sometimes you have to sit back and think about what are the long-term impacts of what we're doing as marketers, aside from just looking at KPIs or tactics or strategies. What are we doing with our time as marketers? How are we helping the world as marketers? What are we bringing of value? And when I see this, like, no jobs, and you don't want to have crypto in 20 years because the system will take care of you. You won't have to worry about your private keys because you won't even have to care about a wallet, because you don't need to have money, because, you know, Bitcoin will feed you, or Empire of the Ethereum will feed you, or Neoclassic will feed you. I don't know. You know, I'm just making up names. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We don't live in a video game. Yeah, this isn't a Hollywood movie we're all living in. It's the real world. People really need things. And if you didn't have anybody working, 8 billion people just roaming around the earth, depending on some systems to take care of their needs, what happens when one of those systems breaks down? Fire, wind, water, earthquake. What happens when one of those systems breaks down? You think you're gonna have all the systems to go and replace them too, and everything else? You're gonna have systems to replace systems, and that's fine. You can build that automated future, right? It takes people to build it. It takes people to design it. It takes people to make sure that it's well, you know, QA'd. Are you gonna rely on the system to QA itself? That's really dangerous, right? If you're handing over verification to a system without human monitoring and human oversight, at least the ability to say no to the robot, that's very dangerous. So there will always be a need for people to say no to the robots. That's part of the job of managing robotic systems. And there will always be a need for people to design those systems and everything else that goes along with running an entire civilization. There will always be a need for firemen, you know, people to actually run into maybe you can make a super robot that can run into the fire. You're still going to need people to manage those robots doing all that work, right? It's just this. My part of the worry is that this kind of hype will make people think that crypto is a laughing stock, and that they're not to be taken seriously. And also part of the worry is that some people will actually believe this nonsense, and they will dig in and prepare for that day. And in 20 years, we don't need anything. And then when it comes and nothing happens, a big balloon pop. And we see it time and again with all these claims of in the future. People, you know, as a joke, we still all joke about the jetpacks from the Simpsons that we're all waiting for, right? But it's a joke, right? But you know, there's some people who are damn disappointed by it, and I mean really, like more than just a joke. So yeah, I don't think it does any good to tell people we won't need jobs in 20 years, because we will, because we're humans, and we will never stop wanting to do things that help us progress. That's the bottom line. I want to leave you on that note on a Sunday. Hope you're having a relaxed and chill day, or night, or evening, or morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are. And yeah, thanks for listening again to Crypto Marketing Insights. If you are on the YouTube, hit the old subscribe button and the notification bell icon so you can get the latest updates when we post a video. And we do this stuff pretty much every day. So every day or two. It's going to be every day though. So hopefully you'll join us again next time. And until then, take care.